and you're finding yourself in a situation where you're drowning in interest rates hikes because wow, ibisiza yathi sharp curve interest rates zalapha emzansi. Hello honeys, it's Yolz. Welcome back to my channel. We are using a different camera again because I'm testing things out with this lighting. I hope you are well. Today we are talking all things property and a little brief history. I'll give you guys in the intro as well about when I bought my property and how to best do that if you are entering the market. We're also going to dig into building up your credit record, the best ways, and some of the things you need to look out for when you are actually entering the homeowners club. You know, you want to buy property, or you've just started talking to your banker about actually making an offer, putting an offer into something that you've seen and loved. Let's get straight into that without any further ado. If you do enjoy this video, you know what to do. Give it a massive thumbs up, comment down below and let me know any technical questions you may have, because part 2 will be actually all about the technical numbers that are going in when it comes to buying a property, building your portfolio. And it's really going to be a higher level session between you and I answering your questions, because there were questions that were asking more in depth, but I don't want to muddle the two, and we don't have enough time in this video to answer all of those as well. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. There are so many of you in my previous life update video who mentioned that you didn't know you weren't subscribed. You keep coming back and you keep watching the videos, but you actually thought you were part of the gang, but you actually weren't. So double check if you subscribed. It's absolutely free. Just click that subscribe button and join the Yolz channel family. Now let's get into this Q&A. Hey there. It's Yolz channel. Basically, in 2014, I put in an offer for my first property at the age of 22. I was turning 23 later that year, but it started off with that job. December before that, 2013, I got an offer from a big bank, Nedbank, and I thought to myself, well, let me take this. And immediately I started thinking about what I wanted to do. So what I did was actually walk to our Nedbank branch and find somebody I got along with whenever I went to the bank for things like account queries that I had, anything really. And I really made a friend with this banker. And from January that year, I started asking questions around buying my first property. And I want to get into this because one of the biggest questions is, well, how do I start building up that credit record? I started back from that beginning of that year, which made it so much easier, but that's a story for later. So starting at the bank made it a lot easier for me. About 6-7 months into this journey and this program, I started looking at different properties and finding out from my banker how much I qualified for. I'd already built up my credit record by like 3-4 months into the bank. One of the quickest things that happened was him just like telling me what to do and me sort of doing it, and he mentored me into how to make this process easier for me in the long run, and that's very important here. And then lastly, about my history, we then found a place. I think I did mention the fact that I bought in a safe complex. I wanted something safe. It was my first property. I wanted a brand new build as well, so I bought a brand new home. I was the first person to get in there with my family, and the reason I bought it was because we were renting for the longest time, and one of my biggest dreams was really to just buy my mom a house, you know. So it's a 3-bedroom double-story home with 2 bathrooms, and it's in a safe and secure complex, which was a brand new development. So I didn't have to pay other fees as well, which we'll get into as well later into the video, things like transfer duties and stuff like that, because I bought it directly from the developer. Okay, let's get straight into the question. How do you start building a property portfolio? Well, start with a plan and have your market ears super open. You don't just want to start a property portfolio with a mixed bag. I wouldn't advise. I mean, in the long term, it makes sense because then it can shield you from market volatility again and anything that happens in the economy. You do want to diversify. But to start off, I would say choose one asset class, whether that's residential or commercial property or industrial property, whatever that looks like, and start with just one. You know, start in a safe and secure complex. So for instance, if it's warehousing and you want to get into the industrial space, start somewhere where you can see maybe it's new. Maybe let's make an example of Durban, Pinetown, right? Lots of warehouses. You don't want to go into an area maybe that's too old. Maybe somewhere where you can see it's closer towards the airport. There's there's potential for long-term income, and you are buying an actual lease. So you're buying a property with an existing tenant who has a long-term lease. That is probably the best way to start building a property portfolio. So in that way, you're buying an asset that can either, one, wash its own face, or two, do both, wash its face and give you additional profit, on top of management fees, on top of your maintenance expenses. It's still giving you something to can be able to put away and save for the next property. Or better yet, it's giving you extra income to be able to lend on that as well from the bank. In that way, you can actually grow. So whenever we're looking at an asset, you don't want to get into a position where you're buying a house that's empty with no tenant and it's not going to be income bearing. For me, is if you're going to build a property portfolio, you want an income bearing property and potentially something that's more long term. So anything longer than hopefully 12 to 24 months. So look at something that maybe has a 3-year lease. Look at something that's got a 5-year lease. For me, if I were to build a property portfolio, it would most likely be within the commercial space or within the corporate serviced apartment space. So if I'm buying in a complex like this, thankfully I live literally opposite a business precinct, and at the moment it is a buyer's market. There are a lot of people selling, particularly even in my complex. I would then select maybe 2 or 3 units that I'm eyeing and go to the bank, lend against maybe the property that I have already, and see if I can get either and see if I can get that refinanced and make that fund the properties that I'm buying now in a cluster. I would think that's probably the best way to continue in my case, because I already got a residential property already, and thankfully my mom is actually helping me with that property, so it is income bearing at the moment. And I don't know with our surnames and being related, but if it was a different tenant, I could actually lend against the property that I have in Cape Town. So that's how I would start. I hope that makes sense. That's how I would really look at it. If you are going to get into something like this, remember that it is a long-term decision. Credit is involved, and it's long-term credit that's involved. So go in with a plan, crunch the numbers, have a spreadsheet, and be on top of everything. And before you buy, even in a residential area, look at the body corporate. Find out if you can have a look at their financials. Look at what's in arrears. You don't want to get into a place where the lifts are not working, and there might be a special levies that's applied in the next year or two, or they are in arrears for other things like maintenance or stuff like that. And are they going to add solar? We are living in a world where load shedding is a big thing. Again, I'm talking because if I was looking to buy in my complex, which technically sounds like I am, they are looking at putting solar panels on all the roofs within the next 6 to 12 months. This is insider information, but that's because I've been doing my research and finding out. So that makes sense. If I'm going to put a tenant in this unit, I would absolutely go for it, because there are lots of funds in the body corporate right now. I don't know if anyone in my complex knows me, so I don't know if I'm divulging too much information, but yeah, it's really important to delve deep into that, and then find out also if there's a surplus. Find out if the levies have also stayed the same over the years. How much do they increase by? So talk to people. My advice is talk and research like crazy. The most common question is, how do I build up my credit record? I want to buy, but I don't have a credit record. Do I start off with getting a clothing account, or do I actually explore other avenues? I am against clothing accounts. I've never had one, so I will sound like very biased in this situation, but also my banker said that's one of the ways to kill yourself in terms of credit and potentially mess up your credit record if you have a bad spending habit. So they advised that I get a credit card back then, and he actually said to me, don't look at the credit card as more funds for you to spend. Instead, look at it as something that you can use for one of your major expenses that you have every single month. So look at your budget and take one expense and be like, actually, I'm going to be spending 500 Rand towards my internet and paying it off with my credit card. That way, every single month, your credit card pays off your internet at home, right? And then you, with your bank account, create an APO, an automatic payment order, where the money, instead of it going to Urain or Vodacom, whoever your fiber supplier is or internet supplier is going directly to your credit card. So from my bank account, I pay off that 500 Rand directly to my credit card. That is all the credit card is there for. It is not there to allow me to book flights because there's extra points and there's rewards. Don't do that. If I do that, remember to pay that off, because you do have, most banks at least, and the one that I banked with, which is the company I worked with, which was Nedbank, private at the time, we had 55 days which were interest free. I never wanted to pay interest on my credit card. Did I eventually have to? Yes. I think was it before the wedding or after the honeymoon? It was actually after the honeymoon. I went a little bit wild in Mozambique when it comes to our spending. And yeah, we're both using our credit cards and we were not using it the wisest way. It was just easier. And with international payments, it's just easier to always use your credit card instead of your debit card. So it was harder though, paying that off within that 55 days window that you have interest free. So always remember that the minute it washes its own face, you don't pay any interest within that first 55 days. So in other words, we start that 55 days from day one when there's a zero balance. So you pay that off, then it's day one again. You pay that off, it's day one again. The automatic payment order helps you stay disciplined, but number two, it makes you look good to your banks and all your potential lenders, the credit bureau. Your credit score stays at least at a really good level and can potentially look even better because you look like someone who can manage their credit very, very well. I hope that makes sense. If you want us to get into detail with that, we can also do that, but I don't want to dwell on it too much because it is something that I would still say, have a conversation with your banker, especially if you need repairing in this area. Alrighty, then there's another question around buying a third property. Girl, you were on a roll. Usi Viwe, well done, honey. She wants to buy a third property and she wants to know when is the right time to buy. She has two properties. The second, she had to move out of because interest rates were just 10 past 4. So she wants to just know, Guti, is it okay for her to just hold it off in terms of buying her third property and buying it next year this time? My answer would be, let's watch where the markets are leading us to. And also, we probably, if we see more interest rate hikes and things going as bad as they seem, we may see more properties being repossessed. It's a good and a bad thing because that's someone's treasure. You might be able to scoop it up at a much better price next year if things continue the way that they are. You want to always buy in a buyer's market where sellers don't have the power, Buyers have more of the buying power in that case. So you want to be in a position where you can negotiate the prices down, the interest rates down, but also you want to buy in a time where you can afford the highest interest rate that exists at that time, which is sad to say, but you don't want to get into a position where you get into a property and then 2 months later it's still peaking. The markets are still peaking. So let's watch. Maybe when they stabilize, you can actually just catch it at the right time, during a time where you have negotiating power and interest rates are not hopefully going to continue hiking up. So there's another common question as well. Would you recommend a person rents or buys property right now? Right now, I would say rent, my dear. Why? Because you're paying the exact same rent that you would be paying in January if you got into a lease. You're paying the exact same rate. You've signed an escalation rate, hopefully not more than 10%. So the chances of you paying say you got a property of 10,000 Rand, you're paying 10,000 Rand. Next year, for sure, the rent will go up to 11,000 because it's going to increase by 10%, right? Another 1,000 Rand. If you buy today, we do not know how many more times the interest rate is going to go. So if you buy a property today, and even if you've got a tenant, the worst part is your landlord right now is crying because they might be paying far more and they may be standing to lose, whereas you're paying the same rate for a solid 12 months. I hope that makes sense. I would say rather rent and stay where you are. Watch the markets, watch where interest rates are going before you just jump in, because we are seeing an interest rate hike market at the moment. The other biggest question was, how am I paying around the same rate while interest rates are hiking, and explaining the access facility. So I'll start off with actually explaining the access facility. So I am currently using my access facility on my bond. What is an access facility? It is basically the bank saying, you've got a bond of 500,000 rand, I'm making an example, and you can actually put in 50,000 rand and be able to access the money out again. Whatever you can put in now that's on top of your normal installments, you can get out. Now this amount can shift, hey, by the way, but really like super minimal fluctuations. So what I did was compare how much I would earn in interest rates if I put this money in a fixed deposit or a unit trust versus saving in interest rates if I put a bulk of money into my bond. Now what that does is, if my bond is 500,000 rand and I decide to put 200,000 rand into my bond amount goes down to 300,000 rand. My interest rate is charged on only the 300,000 rand, not the original amount of 500. Now this is a temporal arrangement that I am making with my bond right now, because I can take that 200 rand back out, which means it will go back up. But because the bank is actually calculating my interest rate on the 300,000, I am keeping my amount at 7,000 rand per month. I'm keeping it at that fixed rate, meaning it's going to take less interest. It's only taking 300,000 rands interest instead of 500,000 rand. And then the balance from the 7,000 rand is going towards my outstanding amount, my principal amount. So that keeps going down every month. I took money out of my savings account because I realized I'm earning less than what I'm paying. It's more expensive for me to pay interest right now into my bond. And then I put that into my account and I still pay around the same amount, so that I actually just keep dropping my principal amount, and my interest rate that I'm paying is actually really minimal, because my balance according to the bank is far lower. And then at a time where I take all of that money out and I say thank you very much, my balance would have gone down, obviously, because of that my monthly installments, the difference after they take out the interest and all the insurance and all of those admin fees, it would have gone down. However, it's still going to bounce up a little bit to where it should be, because I've taken out a huge amount from that. Okay, in that case, I'm only going to do it once interest rates drop, so that I again shield myself from paying a higher amount than what I have budgeted for originally. Once again, we can get into detail with this particular question in a technical video if you want to see the numbers on an actual spreadsheet. For those of you guys who are catching this high, ni grand ni keep papa very well. Would you advise someone buy an RDP house that people sell? I would say yes, if there is an existing rental market in that area. Hopefully the government is not going to come for me for this, but the rent won't obviously be very high. But if you are seeing potential in the future, ask yourself, what do I see in the next 5 years? Are people actually going to be buying in this place? Are people going to want to live in this place in the next 5 years? And if you see potential in actually improving those RDP homes, if there is something that's really attractive about the area, the township that it's in, if there's improvements or a center that they're building, any future potential work that you are seeing, I am all for you buying and actually getting a tenant there, making it an income-bearing property. Home loan or building loan, and why? Geez, it depends on land. There's scarcity of land in areas we want to stay in. So I would buy a home right now and probably flip it. Home loan, a building loan and a home loan differs in the sense that most banks at least want you to have the land. So if you can afford to bring the land and get a building loan, it is more advised from a banker's perspective, at least. I shouldn't say that from a banker, from a commercial property finance perspective. That is what we would usually advise. So you bring the land, we bring the development. Essentially, we fund the development. In that case, it is better, it is faster as well. And I do believe they give you about 18 months, at least in commercial property, to actually build without having to pay off that loan immediately. But speak to your banker, okay? And if you can pay it off as quickly as possible, also do so, because a building loan should be a little bit less than an actual home loan if we are talking ceteris paribus without any deposit, and you bringing the land to the bank and saying, I have the land, I just need the development finance. Kosiam Yolz. To buy or not to buy in this volatile market? Girl, I would not buy if I don't have at least a 4,000 rand buffer. Obviously, depending on the amount of the property that you are buying, and if you're doing it through the bank. If you're buying cash, then yes, to buy in this market, because you have more negotiating power than any other market, at least within the last 3 years. I think this is a really, really good time for you to take those savings out. If you have cash, go and buy, but negotiate like you are crazy, because sellers are looking for and prefer cash buyers. It's a much quicker transaction, but just make sure that you've done your research on the area, on the complex, if it's a complex, and seeing if people are also buying or selling, because everyone is selling, but why? That's also really, really important. But again, before you buy in a complex or any secure thing like a sectional title, just make sure that the body corporate is in check and they're taking care of the actual property as they should. Check the levies, make sure you can afford them, check the rates in the area if you can afford them. Then we have another question: if I was not a homeowner, would I consider buying land and building our own home? Well, I am a homeowner, but even if I wanted to live in my own home, it's in Cape Town. I can't actually live in my own home. I would consider buying land in an area that's ideal for me, my family, if the schooling district seems pretty good. And I feel as though, I would love to build our own home, because both me and my husband he's still in the property side. He's actually in the tech space of things, alternative building technology. So he absolutely loves buildings. That's how he's away now. He's actually building a private school somewhere out the country, which you might see soon. But basically, he absolutely loves the idea of building with alternative material outside of just like brick and mortar. So I would love to see that come to fruition, using light steel frame and exploring greencrete. Like, this question I could expand on, but I'm wasting your time in answering it, so let me not. Yes, I would consider buying land and building if we found the land that we want at a good price in the area that we're currently living in. Even if the rates are expensive, I would actually still consider building. Upfront deposit versus top-up repayments. So you'd have to do the calculation on an actual spreadsheet, but I would still say any day, if you can get your bond amount down to 80% or less, you are helping yourself. And then on top of that, add just 200 or 300 Rand on the actual repayments. That too does help. You spend the first 5 years of your bond paying interest, okay? So you want to make sure that chunk is not 100%. I know people get excited when they get 100% bond approval, home loan approval. It's exciting in the beginning, but one thing I do regret is actually not putting down a deposit, especially from my side, because I was getting bond repayments that were less than prime. My bond repayments were prime less, 2.5% or 4%, I'm not sure. But working at the bank, you're getting less than prime interest rates, one. Number two, it's the most favorable position you can be in. So do yourself the favor and actually put down a deposit so that your overall bond, or rather your overall amount that's owed to the bank, is far less. In that way, you will be saving overall, and you'll spend less time putting money into paying off an interest rate that is might change, might not change, may keep hiking, may go down. It's just too volatile to take that risk. So from the beginning, if you can put a good deposit down, if you can do 20%, that would be my sweet spot. If I could go back, that's what I would do. My third point to this is the fact that we don't know what the future would look like. If you can stand today, and they say, yes, cash is king, but if you can stand today and say, I can afford to put in a 20% deposit right now, put it in. Because you don't know in 2 years' time what interest rates would look like, and if you'd be able to keep up with the extra repayments. Life happened, you know. Remember, if you want to buy a second property on the same salary that you earn now, that you pre-qualified for, they're going to base it on the current bond that you have minus whatever amount you actually qualify for. So if you qualify for R1 million and you buy a property for 600 Rand, the bank can only lend you, again, all things equal, ceteris paribus, if interest rates are now still the same as when you bought the property, you now qualify for an additional 400,000 on the same salary that you have when you bought the property, an excess of only 400,000 Rand. So you're doing yourself a favor by putting in a deposit of 100,000 Rand so that you can buy 2 properties with that 1 million Rand qualification. I hope that makes sense. That was basically a basis from which we can now work from when it comes to the more technical side of buying property, building your portfolio, how to go about the numbers when it comes to negotiating. Oh, before I forget as well, there is one last question. Somebody said that they earn 10,000 Rand. Would they qualify for a property? Definitely go to your banker. Again, it all depends on your expenses and your disposable income, whatever is left. Generally, you would qualify for a property where you would pay something around 3,000 or 3,500 Rand. Probably that's like the cap, because 30% of your disposable income should be what goes towards your bond. That's how banks usually calculate it. But again, speak to your banker and you'll get an advice. There are also subsidies that are available for people who earn between 3,500 and up to, I think, just under 20,000. I'll actually put that down here for the exact facts. But speak to a banker and find out. You do need to get pre-approval. You do need to get pre-approval before you actually apply for the subsidy, but there are subsidies out there. There are also homes that you can buy under 850,000 Rand. I'll also fact check that, where you don't have to pay transfer duties. I don't know how much you must earn to qualify for that, but there are various ways that do try and help homeowners who are not earning very high amounts, or rather potential homeowners who want to own homes. There are different avenues. Research as much as you can. That is the takeaway for today's video. I hope that this helped anyone who is standing, between renting or buying, or they have savings. And again, if you are a cash buyer, this would be a go-to market, I think, because you do have more buying power, more negotiating power. That is about it for me today. If you have any more technical questions, please leave them down in the comment section. We'll have a dedicated video for that. If you're not subscribed already, please do so. I know you really like this video because you stayed till this far. So please just subscribe and actually join the family. We are on the way to 100,000 subscribers, and I cannot wait to celebrate that milestone with you. I love you guys so much, and I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. It's free. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Bye. I did not finish my drink. Sunny bonani, si bangane, si right, si ready, si relevant. Sunny bo. Okay, Yolz, are you happy with the lighting? I feel like it's making you look a little too large. Okay. Righto. Let's go to the content. Put the phone on silent, please. Life update. Life.